Jackson on the drive, kicks it out for Man. Man, three-pointer, bang! Oh, what a man!
Magic down the middle, just what I thought. A hook shot at 12, good!
Here's Michael at the foul line, a shot on Elo, good!
The Bulls win! They win it!
Now there's a steal by Murr, underneath the DJ,
Going up over Bell, ball away. Yes! Yes! At the buzzer, he does it! Was there ever a doubt? A Smith screen, Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
It's a physical game. Oh, man, oh, my. A monster jam by Blake Griffin.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another 2023 playoff preview here on Dime Dropper. Before we get started, you already know the deal. Make sure to subscribe on Dime Dropper. Follow us on whatever Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Dime Dropper Pod. For today's episode, another one interacting with other content creators, authentic fans of their teams. And for this one, we've got the number 3 seeded Philadelphia 76ers versus the number 6 Brooklyn Nets. And joining me today, one person making his second appearance on the show. That is Caleb from the Brooklyn Netcast. Last we saw him was right after the trades, or right before the KD trade, I believe. Caleb, how are you feeling?
I about the series or just in general? In general,
Just in general, in life.
In life, I feel good. Series, it's a little shaky. Yeah, but yeah, I feel good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And making his Dime Dropper debut, man who introduced me to the Hoop Spaces family, which helped me get, a lot of followers, meet some cool people. Sixers fan for longer than I've been alive. Chris, the Hoop Space himself.
You had to put that one out there.
Wait, the audience is looking at me.
That hurts, bro.
Older
This Doc Rivers hate you have. We need to unpack this, man. This man really hurt your feelings.
Talk about the quote today. The quote today says a lot.
It was nothing we didn't already know, but I want to keep this, on page with Brooklyn and Philly. So before we get started, to get started, Caleb, we had you on to talk about the whole first half of the season already, with Jacques Vaughn taking over Steve Nash, Kyrie Irving and KD hitting stride, and then the whole trade situation. So just let us know these last 24, 25 games with this new team. How are you feeling about them? Mikal Bridges' play. What is this team like, this Nets team?
First of all, I just want to excuse the camera. I'm using a laptop right now, not in my normal setup, so the lighting's a bit iffy. But I've liked the team. I mean, Mikal's broken out. He's been absolutely amazing. And it's better than anything we could have expected. Cam Johnson has really turned it on, is averaging 18, 4, and 5 and 4, I think, over the last 20 games. So he's been balling. Nick Claxton's been absolutely amazing. DFS has rounded the corner and been shooting the 3-ball really well. Dinwiddie's doing Dinwiddie things. I mean, just your normal stuff. The Twitter stuff's fun too. But he's been facilitating the ball actually at a very high level. I mean, he led the league in assists in March, was it? Yeah. So, I mean, he's been playing some pretty damn good basketball. And we've gotten some little contributions here and there. Big one from Royce, by the way. He's been absolutely amazing. 6 man of the year caliber stuff almost for, a 25 game span. So, give or take. But he's been the total glue guy doing everything. Day'Ron Sharpe has arrived. He's been playing some good basketball. Cam Thomas had another 45 piece, at the end of the season. But, he's not really getting run. Seth is terrorizing the Nets. And Joe Harris has been knocking down some big shots lately, which isn't, the most Joe Harris thing you'll hear. But he's been playing some good basketball too. So it's been a pretty fun run for that Nets team.
Okay, and now we go to Chris. Obviously, the 76ers have championship aspirations, a good amount of pressure on them this season. Obviously, having the guy who seems to be favored to win MVP in Joel Embiid has been one of the best players in the league, and especially in the regular season the last 3 years. Harden's first full year as a Sixer started out slow this season, Philly, but then it seemed like when Harden came back from that little injury, the team just took off. Tell me about the Sixers team, how much better they are than last year, and do you really think they're true championship contenders? Because a lot of people think they're a little bit fraudulent, including myself.
Ooh.
Oh, you're muted, Chris.
Chris, no.
My bad. My fault. No, I was chuckling earlier, and I want to make sure I was on mute because Kayla was saying that Spencer Dinwiddie led the league in assists in March, but he fails to say the majority of those games he also shot like 33%. Like I mean, it's like if you want him to get those assists because he wasn't hitting any shots, man. Like,
exactly, you get it. Yeah,
I get it, man. I'm with that. Yeah, they started out slow, and part of that is James Harden is older. He's not younger. It took him longer, and he even came in shape, but it took him longer really to get his stride into the offense, right? He was the healthiest he had been, but in terms of incorporating Tyrese Maxey as a starter, it was completely different. I even complained at the beginning of the season that they played the same position as a ball-dominant guard. And that took really a lot of time. And I think we don't give James Harden enough credit for really completing the transition of his game from what we remember him being in Houston, started in Brooklyn to what he's now evolved into. And then they did very well, more so just because Embiid was that dominant. I mean, he's going to end up being the MVP, I think. Harris also remained steady as a good, solid veteran who's able to contribute in all facets of the game. They brought in DeAnthony Melton, who's top 5 individual defense. They lose Matisse Thybulle in the trade. But they pick up, another good defender in Jalen McDaniels who can do similar things. He's not as good in terms of Thybulle, who's top 3, but he's like top 15, which is still good. Shake Milton really rounded a corner betting on himself. And I think really that's where the difference is Shake Milton now can actually be that lead point guard off the bench who can either give you scoring and now facilitate, whereas before he couldn't. And I think that's what makes them a little bit better this year. The dynamic of Maxey being able to take off, but then still having consistent offensive pressure even when Joel Embiid is off the floor. And you see that with the likes of Paul Reed being able to get you 14 and 12, even in limited minutes, because the scheme that they're actually running via Sam and Doc is actually working more so for the ancillary players. And then they're allowing Joel to be more ISO with the pick and roll following up. So it's real good right now in Philly.
The Philadelphia 76ers, 4th in offensive rating this season, 8th in defensive rating, one of the few teams to be top 10 in both. I guess let's go to Caleb. Mikal Bridges has been averaging 26 points as a net, and he's shooting basically – 47.5% from the field. Am I reading this right? 37.5 from 3, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty amazing. I want to ask, how many games do you think this can go without you guys having a true star? I mean, Mikal Bridges, I think next year will be an all-star. Do you think he can have that kind of star impact in this series and lead you to 2 wins? Because I think most people are saying 4 or 5 in this series.
I have the going to 6 as well. So that's kind of, I think it reminds me a lot of the past Nets 76ers series from, was that 4 years ago now?
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, so 4 years ago, where you have Embiid there obviously as the focal point of everything, the best player on the floor at all points in time. You have a young rising star. Not that Mikal is really that young, but you have a rising star in Mikal similar to like D'Lo at the time. D'Lo played like garbage that series, by the way, like absolutely awful. And Spencer Dinwiddie was actually our best player. Who, not that that's a good thing, I might add, but he was. Yeah, but I just really hope Dinwiddie's facilitating the basketball, passing the basketball, remembering, you're not Kobe. Please do not shoot 30 shots because it happens sometimes with him where he gets, a little trigger happy there, especially from the perimeter with his step back. It just hasn't been falling. So I really hope he starts really orchestrating the offense, which he has done for the most part, but he does have his game. So I think that will be a big aspect of it as well. Also, there was a comment I wanted to address just really quick about how the 76ers G League team dismantled the Nets with everyone but Bridges. Bridges didn't play. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Seth, all are 8 main rotation guys were all out. So it was more than just.
I hate to tell you, Mikal Bridges was logged in as starting and playing in that
Oh,
game.
4 seconds. Yeah, we had 4 seconds of Mikal and lost. I mean, that's a wrap, right?
He played 82 again, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
He played 82 again.
83.
Wow. Yeah, right. Impressive. So probably going to see a steady dosage of like DeAnthony Melton, McDaniels guarding Harden. Guarding Dinwiddie, I'd assume, and Bridges. As far as the defenders that the Nets have, Chris, they've got guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Mikal Bridges to throw at Harden. Do you think that could end up being a little problematic? Throw it not just Harden, but Maxey as well, who's having a career year, 20 points a game, improving every season, so fast off the bounce, can get lights out from deep. Do you think that can be a problem? Because the one thing about the Nets I'm concerned about is offensively, but defensively they got some guys.
So like what's funny is we're gonna find out, and the reason why is they got PJ Tucker for explicitly this reason. They kept George Niang through the trade deadline specifically for this reason. So when they do over rotate Dorian Finney-Smith to come in to throw another wing on Harden to double team him and force him, over to his left so he can't do that pull, the double step back or pick and roll. You get PJ Tucker because he's supposed to be prolific shooting the corner three. You get George Niang because he's supposed to be prolific at shooting the corner three. If they hit their shots, then you just keep rolling, and then they're going to have to honor that, and then that opens up the pick and roll with Embiid. So really, if PJ Tucker does what he was brought in to do, which is hit essentially 3 out of every 7 in the corner, then this is an easy Philly win because Brooklyn won't be able to keep up with the rotations. They'll just break down eventually. And it'll happen because the first thing will go down will be Nick Claxton in foul trouble, right? And then once that happens, if you're going to let Day'Ron Sharpe guard Joel Embiid for 8 minutes in one quarter, good night. What do you expect? I mean, 6 for 6 with maybe 8 free throws. And I love Day'Ron Sharpe, but he's not guarding Embiid.
He's a foul machine.
Yeah, but that's the trap. That's why they want you to send Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson at James Harden or Tyrese Maxey. That's the trap. And hopefully it works.
I forgot about PJ Tucker. Obviously another big body in terms of defense that you can throw at guys. I know he obviously has had games where he's doesn't do anything offensively, but I still think that PJ with his experience can find some ways to contribute. Caleb, as far as Joel Embiid, the dude just keeps topping his best season, it seems. He's had an interesting playoff history where he's had a hard time staying healthy. But when he's focused and aggressive, he can't be stopped. You talk about Nick Claxton, defensive player of the year level defense, you said all year, even when you came on last time. Do you think he stands a chance against Embiid one-on-one? Do you think you're going to double him? What do you think you're going to do to slow this guy down and to slow down the Harden Embiid pick and pop? Because the Harden Embiid pick and pop is one of the hardest pick and roll, pick and pop tandems in the league right now.
I'd say ever. One of the hardest to guard ever between those two. It's been magical to watch, honestly. And no, Claxton one-on-one with Embiid, it's not going to go well. I love Claxton, but no player one-on-one with Embiid is going to go well. He's just been that great for the past 2 seasons, especially, and really this season. He's been the most dominant of all, of his career. But a lot of what the Nets do is, like Chris said, they do rotate pretty hard and kind of crash guys, especially in the posts. They've been doing that a ton, so I expect a lot of DFS and Claxton swarming Embiid. So it really does come down to, does PJ Tucker actually decide to impact the offense whatsoever during the series, which, is a up in the air thing. And also will Jalen McDaniels, when he gets run, hit his shots? Will George Niang? I'd say George Niang probably will, but he's a kind of let's be real, kind of a cone. So I guess he has his ups and downs. I mean, he has some half decent defensive games, but that's about it from him. But I mean, the Nets offense isn't that good anyways, so it shouldn't really hurt that bad. But I expect him just to swarm Embiid, swarm Harden, and make the other guys beat you. I think that's going to be the game plan. And, I think he'll win us. I think we can pull out 2 games from that, but that's about it. But yeah, Embiid Claxton one-on-one. I love Claxton. Like you said, defensive player of the year caliber defense all year, but it's not fair. That's not fair.
I think doubling and using the size and big wings and length that you guys have to rotate and run guys off the line, that could be a decent strategy for sure. What was going to ask you, Chris? James Harden, I didn't even think about this. This is kind of an interesting series for him. I mean, he spent a year in Brooklyn, about a year, a little over, and he's returning. Somebody asked, do you think Harden will be great in this series? I'd assume the answer from you is yes, but how big do you think Tobias Harris is going to be in this series?
I don't think there's the person remaining in Brooklyn that James Harden has any animosity towards. Let me just first say that, right? Like, I don't know what happened.
Do they have animosity towards James Harden? Are the fans going to boo him?
Oh, the fans, yeah. But the players, they're not really going to have the same type of animus. Like he left, from what I understand, on pretty good terms individually with I think there's only 5 people remaining anyway.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think the bigger issue that we'll have is if James Harden is actually really healthy, right? And if he's healthy, we can probably expect to see anywhere between 18 and 22 points per game and probably a high level assist total of 13 or 14. If he's not healthy, that's when we're going to start seeing James Harden go 5 for 18 with only 12 or 14 points and only play 26 minutes, right?
What's his health like right now?
I would say he's probably about 90%.
What's the injury he's been dealing with?
Probably his heel, ankle, and foot. So the Sixers are notorious for not really, giving you the straight injury either. It's very similar to the Lakers, but it is a foot thing. Like that's basically all we can pin down. And if you watch it, you can see him sometimes when he favors it. He doesn't have the explosion. You'll see teams push him over to the left, and he just can't recover. And then he usually passes it up, which is why we need Tobias Harris, because Tobias Harris has been able to actually pick up that slack. And I actually kind of expect Tobias Harris to win the matchup versus Cam Johnson, simply for the fact that Cam Johnson is kind of Tobias Harris light in this role, in my personal opinion. And I think once we get into it, Tobias's craft is just going to be a little bit more. So I expect him to win that matchup. Although I do see Cam, being able to pop off for a 22, 24-point game.
Let's see where I want to go for the last couple of questions. So, Caleb, you said Sixers in 6. That was your prediction. I guess the last question for you, personnel-wise, would be: are we going to see any Cam Johnson in this series? And then, what's the projected starting lineup? Cam Thomas.
Cam Thomas.
I hope so. Why not? That man, every once in a while, he just says, he has this sort of mentality. Well, his favorite player growing up was
Kobe,
and then he loved James Harden, obviously, too. So I feel like a matchup with James Harden, he would be like, okay, this is like one of my idols growing up. And, I want to go at him because let's be real, like James Harden defensively is just, he's not that great. So I hope we do see him. I would love to see him matched up with Harden. Obviously, on the other side of the basketball, that's pretty ugly. But, there's certain points we reach where the offense is just so stagnant at times and it just really isn't working, where I think it's going to be screw it, put Cam in, let him cook. He's going to get you a nice 14, 15 maybe that night. And then he won't play the next night. That's kind of how it's been all season. But I expect to see a little bit of him and probably more Seth, which I'm not a fan of. But if Seth Curry is good at one thing, it's playing the Philadelphia 76ers. I feel like every time he plays Philly, he goes off. So, it'd be nice if we could do that twice, like to have 2 really good shooting games. I mean, Chris, you've seen it. Seth Curry loves playing him. Also, Mr. Ramy is our X factor. Just got to put that out there.
Projected starting 5: Mikal Bridges, Nick Claxton,
Cam Johnson, Dinwiddie. Yeah.
Man, that's 3 big wings, dude.
And also Kyle Kuzma on courtside, rooting for the 76ers.
As you guys,
he might show up too. Like that would be hilarious.
I would not put it past him whatsoever.
He's gonna.
As you guys can see, I'm repping the Brooklyn Nets because I am just not a fan of James and Glenn Rivers. But here's the thing, Chris. Do you think Joel Embiid even needs to have a great series to win this one comfortably?
No, not a great series.
You think it's the
But
second round that's going to be more tested for him?
yeah. He doesn't. You can give it like the issue is when you look at just the matchup. He averages 27 points per game versus Nick Claxton. Right, it's 27 points, 11 boards, two blocks, and like a steal. Right, that's not the 33 point per game Joel Embiid. So going into it, I'm not expecting the 33, 34 point Joel Embiid. I'm expecting 26 to 28. And like I said, it's really going to be likely Tobias Harris, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey. Like I don't really see this being the Joel Embiid series.
Okay.
That's likely second round.
Yeah, and what Caleb said, I think they're really going to do that. Just double him every time he gets the ball, like in the mid post or like foul line area, and try to get their guys, their wings to rotate and run guys off the line. My last question to you, Chris, is basketball question for both of you is James Harden's defense. That's been a subject of criticism for many, many years. I think at times he can be a little bit underrated on defense. I think when he tries, he's actually decent because he's a strong player. He's actually, I think he's a much better post defender than he is against facing up guys. The Nets don't really have that many post players, if any, that I can think of. But zero. How do you feel about his defense? Being the second best player on this team, you think it's going to be good enough to go all the way?
I don't think he's the second best player on the team.
Whoa, Tyrese Maxey?
Yes.
Wow. Even with James Harden having 20 and 10?
The natural athleticism that Tyrese Maxey has separates him. Like if a team is looking at the Sixers, they're not saying we can't let James Harden beat us any longer. They're like, we need to contain him a little bit better, but like we know Joel's gonna eat. We have to stop Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Yeah. I mean, when Tyrese Maxey gets it going and he has those 25-point nights that are efficient, I don't know. I'm gonna get
9 for 14, 6 for 6 from the line.
Yes, like
3
that.
for 3 from deep.
It's hard to win when he has those games. Harden, it's kind of gonna be. We'll double him a little bit, but more than anything, it's gonna be you're gonna leave him out on the perimeter 1-on-1, probably with. I feel like Cam Johnson might get a decent amount of matchup against him. I don't feel like Cam matches up great or absolutely poorly against him either. I mean, Harden's a stronger guard, and Dinwiddie just doesn't really have the facilities for that. I'd rather us. I mean, we switch everything, so it'll be inevitable. Everybody will guard James at some point. Everybody will be on Maxey at some point. But I think the real focal point should be don't let Maxey. Well, obviously, let Embiid's going to eat. Don't let Maxey go off because if Maxey has that 9 for 14, 6 of 6 night, it's kind of over. So that should be a main focal point is keep Harden in front of you as much as possible. Try to double Embiid as much as possible and just make sure Maxey does not get it going. And I think we should steal 2 games.
And in terms of Harden's defense, like he's going to struggle when Spencer Dinwiddie goes out the game.
Spencer Dinwiddie downhill is a very good player when he doesn't chuck up.
But half court, he's going to be able to keep Spencer in front of him. He's going to be able to push him from trying to drive in. And what's going to happen is once Seth Curry comes in, it changes because then he's got to chase Seth Curry around. And then you'll see probably James Harden be switched, right? And then it's going to be, well, who are you going to put him on? That's when you need to attack him because it's either going to be Mikal Bridges or Cam. So that's what I worry about with James Harden in regards to his defense, not really Spencer Dinwiddie.
Great on the post for guard, though, by the way. I want to bring that up. Because I preached that while I was here. It was the only thing he was really good at defensively. But when James isn't – Nets don't have any post players, so it really won't matter this series. Like Claxton doesn't even post up really. I mean, a little bit, but not much. But like James Harden in the post at least is useful. Because like you said, he's a very strong guard. Doesn't get moved at all. He kind of just stays in his position and is good at putting himself between the basket and, guy in the post. But now that we don't even play in the post, I mean, there's not much he's going to do. Like Chris said, he's going to have to chase around either Joe or Seth, whoever's on the court, I imagine would be what's going to end up happening, and who he gets matched up on, I think will be interesting. Maybe DFS. That might be the matchup you'd like, Chris. I feel like that possibly could be it too.
Anybody that's not fast.
Nets are pretty fat. Yeah, so I mean, I guess Joe Harris, literally.
Yes. Oh, he's salivating for Joe Harris, man.
Pacers, 76ers are 27th in the league in pace. I would assume with the Nets' younger team, they would try to get up and down a little bit when they can. If I'm the Nets too, I would put Harden and Maxey in the action more than I would put Embiid in the action. I know typically, you have your centers at the screen, but I think on those pick and pop or short roll or like slip screen situations, just putting Harden and Maxey in the action, making them work, I think would be a good strategy. But yeah, guys, this is great. We've already gotten Caleb's prediction. I got the Sixers in 5. Chris, give me your prediction, and then make sure to plug yourself, guys. Shout out and tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, I have Sixers in 5. I think the Nets actually win game 1. I think they go in and sneak it. And then I think Joel Embiid comes back, wins game 2, but then the rest of the Sixers wake up. They cruise to a gentleman's sweep. I think regular scores, 114, 106 type games. They're not going to be blown out, but they're not going to be, winning. They'll push it close into the 4th, 5 minutes to go. Joel will take over. And that's kind of how I see it happening.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. I think the Nets steal game 1 again, like they did in the previous series. I think they sneak out like a game 4. But other than that, I think it's just one of those games where you get a few lucky bounces. But other than that, I got Sixers and 6, which is really hard for me to say.
Yeah, losing at home after you win one of the first 2 losing both games at home after you win one of the first 2 road games is tough. I mean,
I got my plug.
That happened to me against us against the Warriors a couple years ago. But go ahead, plug yourselves, guys. Starting with Chris.
Yeah, so some good news. Amazon has picked me up for the remainder of the playoffs. The contract went through this morning. We'll talk about season 3. You can in June, but you can catch me on Amazon's app called AMP. It's just like iHeartRadio, but live talk as well. So go to your iOS app store or follow me on Twitter at HoopSpaces. Download on AMP and just chill. It's a good vibe, man.
Caleb?
Yeah. Brooklyn Netcast. I mean, it's right there. Same YouTube, Twitter. That's all basically I do. We're on Instagram as well, but don't really use it. So yeah. I'm just mainly using Twitter. We're gonna get into YouTube next year, which should be exciting, and really start cranking out content. Cash there in the comments is the co-host. So that'll be a lot of fun. And I hope to have you guys on at some point too. Obviously, that'd be great.
Hey, man, anytime. Appreciate you guys so much for joining me. Love doing these things. Make sure all you guys, Dime Dropper fam, keep following these guys, tuning into what they do. They're really passionate about the game, just like myself. As I said, I got the Sixers in 5, a rematch of the 2019 first round, and the return of James Harden to Brooklyn. I am the president of the Glen Rivers Slander Association saying, go Nets, and have a great weekend, everybody.